I am Maria, 32 years old, and I have been staring at this empty room for 3 years. The walls are painted soft yellow because we never knew if our baby would be a boy or girl. The crib sits in the corner, still in its box. Thomas bought it after our second miscarriage, believing that faith meant preparing for what we hoped would come. Maybe we should turn this into something else, I whispered to him last night. Thomas shook his head. Not yet, but I am tired of walking past this room every morning and feeling my heart break again. Tired of my sister calling to tell me she's pregnant with her third child. Tired of leaving baby showers early because I can't stop crying in bathroom stalls. The doctor's words still echo in my mind. Keep trying. Sometimes it just takes time. Time. We have been trying for 5 years. 5 years of tracking cycles, taking vitamins, avoiding alcohol, eating perfectly. 5 years of pregnancy tests that stayed stubbornly blank. 5 years of 2 miscarriages that left me questioning everything I believed about God's goodness. Our church friends mean well. God's timing is perfect, they say. He has a plan. Sister Catherine tells me to trust more, pray harder, believe stronger. But what do you do when your faith feels as empty as your arms? Last Sunday, I watched young mothers bouncing babies during worship. Their little ones babbled over the pastor's sermon, and instead of feeling annoyed, I felt jealous. I would give anything to have my baby interrupt church. Are you listening, God? I prayed that night, kneeling beside our bed. Because I don't understand what you're doing. Thomas found me crying in the kitchen at 2 a.m., holding a cup of cold tea. I can't do this anymore, I told him. I can't keep hoping and failing. What are you saying? Maybe God is telling us no. Maybe we're not meant to be parents. Thomas sat beside me, taking my hands in his. What if God is preparing us for something we can't see yet? I wanted to believe him, but hope had become too painful to hold. The next morning, our pastor called with news that would change everything. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that my heart couldn't break any more than it already had. Or so I thought. Maria, I need to ask you something important. Pastor John's voice sounded different. Urgent. I gripped the phone tighter. There's a situation at the hospital. A teenage girl gave birth 3 days ago. She's alone, scared, and asking about adoption. My heart stopped. The social worker remembered that you and Thomas had mentioned adoption during counseling. Would you be willing to meet with her? When? Today. She's being discharged tomorrow, and she needs to make a decision quickly. I called Thomas at work. He came home immediately, his face pale with shock and hope. This could be it, he said, pacing our living room. This could be God's answer. Or it could be another heartbreak, I replied. What if she changes her mind? What if we're not what she wants? What if God is finally saying yes? We drove to the hospital in silence. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. After 5 years of wanting a baby, the possibility felt too big, too sudden, too frightening. What if we're not ready? I whispered as we walked through the hospital corridors. No one is ever ready, Thomas said. But we've been preparing our hearts for years. The social worker, Linda, met us in the lobby. She was a small woman with kind eyes who spoke gently about the situation. Her name is Sophia. She's 17, a senior in high school. The father isn't involved. Her family lives in another state, and she feels completely alone. Why adoption? Thomas asked. She wants this baby to have what she can't give. 2 parents. Stability. A future she can't provide at 17. Linda led us to Sophia's room. My legs felt weak as we approached the door. Remember, Linda said quietly, she's making this choice out of love. Don't try to convince her of anything. Just be yourselves. I took a deep breath and knocked. Come in, a young voice called. Sophia was sitting in the hospital bed, holding her baby. She was smaller than I expected, with dark hair and tired eyes that looked much older than 17. The baby was wrapped in a pink blanket, sleeping peacefully. You must be Maria and Thomas, she said. We nodded, sitting in the chairs beside her bed. This is Isabella, Sophia whispered, looking down at her daughter. She's 3 days old. The baby was beautiful. Perfect tiny fingers, dark hair like her mother's, peaceful expression. My heart ached with immediate love. Tell me about yourselves, Sophia said. I need to know who you are. As we talked, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. The presence of God moving in a hospital room where a teenage mother was considering the most difficult decision of her life. Sophia asked us questions for 2 hours. Do you go to church? Yes, I answered. Every Sunday. We believe God has a plan, even when we don't understand it. Good. I want Isabella raised with faith. She told us about her own struggles. Her parents had disowned her when they learned about the pregnancy. Her boyfriend had disappeared. She had been living with a friend's family, working part-time to save money for the baby. I thought about keeping her, Sophia said, touching Isabella's cheek. But I'm 17. I haven't finished high school. I work at a restaurant for minimum wage. What kind of life is that for a baby? You're very brave, Thomas said gently. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm failing her before she even has a chance. No, I said firmly. You're choosing her future over your own comfort. That's the most loving thing a mother can do. We spent the afternoon getting to know each other. Sophia showed us pictures from her pregnancy, told us about her hopes and dreams for college, explained why she had named the baby Isabella. It means devoted to God, she said. I figured if I was giving her up, at least I could give her a name that would protect her. As evening approached, Sophia grew quiet. I need to make my decision tonight, she said. Linda says there are other families interested. My heart sank. Of course there were other families. Families with more money, bigger houses, better prepared lives. Before you decide, I said carefully, I want you to know something. Thomas and I have been trying to have children for 5 years. We've had 2 miscarriages. We've prayed, cried, hoped, and doubted. If you choose us, Isabella won't just be getting parents. She'll be getting a family who has been waiting specifically for her. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Can I ask you to do something? She said finally. Anything. Can you pray with me? I need to feel like God is part of this decision. The 3 of us bowed our heads beside Isabella's hospital bed. Sophia prayed first, asking God to show her what was best for her daughter. Thomas prayed for wisdom and peace. I prayed for surrender to whatever God's will might be. When we finished, Sophia was crying. I have something to tell you, she said. When you first walked in this room, Isabella opened her eyes and looked at you, Maria. She hasn't opened her eyes for anyone else today. Not even for me. I felt goosebumps on my arms. I think that was God showing me what I needed to know. Sophia looked directly at us. I want you to adopt Isabella. I want you to be her parents. The next 24 hours passed like a whirlwind. Lawyers arrived with papers covered in words I couldn't understand. Linda explained each document carefully while Sophia signed her name over and over again. This is the hardest part, Linda warned us. Sophia has to legally relinquish her parental rights. It's final and permanent. I watched Sophia's face as she signed each paper. She was crying, but her hand never hesitated. Are you sure about this? I asked her during a quiet moment. I'm sure, she said, but that doesn't make it easy. Thomas and I also signed documents that would make us Isabella's legal parents, responsible for her care, her future, her entire life. What happens now? Thomas asked. You take her home, Linda said simply. Home. With a baby. After 5 years of empty arms, we were finally going to be parents. But first, Sophia asked for 1 hour alone with Isabella. I need to say goodbye, she explained. Thomas and I waited in the hallway, listening through the door as Sophia sang lullabies and whispered promises to her daughter. I'm giving you to people who will love you more than I ever could, we heard her say. I'm 17 and scared, but they've been praying for you for years. You're not being abandoned, little one. You're being given the life I can't provide. When the hour was over, Sophia called us back in. I wrote her a letter, she said, handing Thomas an envelope. For when she's older and has questions about me. Will you keep it safe? Of course. Sophia kissed Isabella's forehead one last time. Take care of my baby, she whispered to us. We will, I promised. We'll love her like she's our own. She is your own now. Linda helped us carry Isabella's few belongings to our car. A pink blanket, 2 outfits, a stuffed rabbit Sophia had bought with her restaurant wages. Are you ready for this? Thomas asked as we secured Isabella's car seat. I looked at our daughter, sleeping peacefully in her carrier. I don't think anyone is ever ready, I said. But God has been preparing us for 5 years. The drive home was terrifying and wonderful. Every red light made me panic that something would go wrong. Every turn made me worry about the baby's safety. But when I looked back at Isabella's peaceful face, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete trust in God's plan. She's really ours, Thomas said as we pulled into our driveway. She's really ours. We carried Isabella into the yellow nursery that had been waiting for 3 years. Thomas opened the crib box while I held our daughter. Finally, the room had its purpose. Welcome home, Isabella, I whispered. But our story was far from over. Isabella cried for 3 hours straight. Nothing we tried helped. Feeding, changing, rocking, singing. She seemed inconsolable. At 2 a.m., I was walking the hallway, bouncing her gently and fighting panic. What if we're doing something wrong? I asked Thomas. What if she misses Sophia? What if she knows we're not her birth parents? Thomas took Isabella from my tired arms. Maybe she's just adjusting. Everything in her world changed today. I called Linda's emergency line, feeling like a failure on my first day of motherhood. This is normal, Linda assured me. Babies sense changes in their environment. Give her time to feel safe with you. Time. The word that had haunted our infertility journey was now part of our parenting journey. Isabella finally fell asleep around 4 a.m., exhausted from crying. I stood over her crib, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. God, I don't know what I'm doing, I prayed silently. I've wanted this for so long, but I'm terrified I'll mess it up. The next few days were overwhelming. Isabella had trouble sleeping, eating, settling into any routine. I questioned every decision. Was she too warm? Too cold? Eating enough? Sleeping enough? Maybe Sophia was right to choose us, Thomas said after a particularly difficult night. But maybe we weren't ready for how hard this would be. On the 4th day, Sister Catherine from our church visited with a casserole and wisdom. Every new mother feels this way, she said, holding Isabella while I showered for the first time in days. The difference is that most mothers have 9 months to prepare mentally. You had 9 hours. What if I can't do this? Maria, you've been preparing for this child your whole life. God didn't bring you this far to abandon you now. That afternoon, something shifted. Isabella was fussing, and instead of panicking, I simply held her and talked to her. I know this is scary, little one, I said. Everything is new for both of us, but we're going to figure it out together. Isabella stopped crying and looked at me with her dark eyes, the same look Sophia had described on that first day. That's better, I whispered. We're going to be okay. That night, Isabella slept for 4 hours straight. When she woke up, she wasn't crying. She was making small noises, looking around her nursery with curious eyes. Good morning, beautiful girl, I said, lifting her from her crib. She smiled, her first real smile directed at me. In that moment, I understood something profound about God's plan. He hadn't just given us a baby. He had made us a family through a process that required faith from everyone involved. Sophia, Thomas, me, and even tiny Isabella. Thomas, I called. Come see this. She's smiling. As he rushed into the nursery, I realized that our long wait hadn't been God ignoring our prayers. It had been God preparing us for this specific child, at this exact moment, through this particular journey. But there was still one more surprise coming. 3 weeks later, Linda called with unexpected news. Sophia wants to meet with you both. She has something important to tell you. My stomach dropped. Is she changing her mind about the adoption? No, nothing like that. But she says it's urgent. We met Sophia at the same coffee shop where we had first talked about Isabella's future. She looked different, older somehow, more at peace. "How is Isabella?" she asked immediately. "Growing beautifully," Thomas said, showing her pictures on his phone. "She's eating well, sleeping better, and she smiled for the first time yesterday." Sophia's eyes filled with happy tears. "Good. I'm so glad. What did you want to tell us?" Sophia took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about why everything happened the way it did. The timing of Isabella's birth, meeting you both, feeling so sure about my decision." She pulled an envelope from her purse. "I found this in my things when I was packing to move. It's a letter I wrote to God when I first found out I was pregnant." Sophia opened the letter and began to read. "Dear God, I'm 17 and pregnant and scared. I don't know what to do. If I keep this baby, I can't give her the life she deserves. If I place her for adoption, I need you to help me find the right family. I need parents who have been praying for her, who will love her completely, who understand that she's a gift from you. Please don't let my mistake ruin her chances at a beautiful life." Sophia looked up at us. "I wrote that 6 months before Isabella was born, before I knew either of you existed." The words hit me like lightning. "You were praying for us before we even met. And you were praying for her while I was carrying her," Sophia said. "Don't you see? God was answering all of our prayers at the same time. Isabella was always meant to be your daughter. I was just the vessel he used to bring her to you." Thomas wiped his eyes. "All those years we thought God wasn't listening. He was orchestrating everything," I finished. "The timing, the meeting, the choice, everything." Sophia reached across the table and took my hands. "I have one more thing to ask you. Anything. I'm starting college in the fall. I want to study social work, to help other girls in situations like mine. Will you write me letters about Isabella as she grows up? Not because I want to interfere, but because knowing she's loved and happy will help me help others. Of course. And someday, when she's old enough to understand, will you tell her that giving her to you was the first real act of love I ever did? That I didn't give her away because I didn't want her, but because I wanted her to have everything. We promise." As we hugged goodbye, Sophia whispered something that made everything clear. "Thank you for loving my daughter enough to raise her, and for loving me enough to help me make the hardest decision of my life." Walking back to our car, I understood something profound about God's ways. He hadn't answered our prayers the way we expected, but he had answered them perfectly. Isabella wasn't just our daughter. She was the intersection of 3 people's prayers, delivered through circumstances that seemed impossible but were actually inevitable. Isabella is 6 months old now, and she is perfect. She has Sophia's dark hair and what everyone says are my eyes. She laughs when Thomas makes silly faces, sleeps peacefully in the nursery that waited 3 years for her arrival, and babbles along when we sing hymns during our morning routine. Last Sunday, our pastor asked if I would share our story with the congregation. "Many people struggle with infertility," he said. "Your testimony might help someone who is losing faith." Standing at the pulpit, holding Isabella in my arms, I looked out at faces I recognized, some hopeful, some hurting, some celebrating, some waiting. 5 years ago, I thought God wasn't answering my prayers. I began. I begged him for a baby, demanded he explain why other women could have children easily while Thomas and I struggled. I was angry, hurt, and losing faith. Isabella made a small noise, and the congregation smiled. What I didn't understand was that God was answering my prayers. He was just answering them in a way I couldn't see. While I was crying over negative pregnancy tests, Sophia was carrying the daughter I was meant to raise. While I was questioning God's goodness, he was preparing 3 hearts to make decisions that required tremendous faith. I paused, looking at familiar faces. God's timing isn't our timing. His plans aren't our plans. But his love is bigger than our limited understanding. After the service, 3 women approached me privately, all struggling with infertility, all losing hope, all wondering if God cared about their dreams of motherhood. "Keep praying," I told each one, "but be open to God answering in ways you haven't imagined." Last month, we received our first letter from Sophia. She's thriving in college, maintaining straight A's, and working with a campus ministry that helps pregnant students. She included a picture of herself smiling, looking happy and at peace. Knowing Isabella is loved gives me strength to help other girls make difficult choices, she wrote. Tell her that her birth mother thinks about her every day and is proud to have given her to parents who love God and love her. Thomas and I have started a support group at our church for couples struggling with infertility. We don't promise that everyone's story will end like ours, but we share the truth we've learned. God is always working, even in our waiting, even in our pain, even when we can't see his hand moving. Isabella sits in her bouncy seat while I write these words, playing with the stuffed rabbit Sophia bought for her. She doesn't know yet that she's adopted, but she will. She'll grow up knowing she was wanted by her birth mother and chosen by her parents, loved by all three in different but powerful ways. Sometimes I walk into her nursery at night and marvel at the miracle sleeping in that crib. Not just the miracle of her life, but the miracle of God weaving together the prayers of a teenage mother, a couple struggling with infertility, and a baby who needed exactly the right family. We couldn't have children for years, but God never stopped working on our behalf. He was simply preparing us to be Isabella's parents through a journey that taught us faith, patience, and the beauty of his unexpected answers. Our prayers were answered, just not the way we expected. And his way was perfect. Have you ever experienced God answering your prayers in completely unexpected ways? Maybe you're waiting for something right now and wondering if he's listening? Share your story in the comments below and let me know where in the world you're reading this from. Your faith journey might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.